What do you do if a cop shines a flashlight into your car and starts looking around like they already expect to find something? If you move the wrong way for even 2 seconds, you can give them the reason they need to turn a simple stop into a full search. Your hands, your words, and your timing matter more than you think. Hit subscribe right now because what you're about to hear could stop you from giving away your rights in seconds. Tap like too so you can find this again when your heart is pounding during a real stop. Here's what you need to know before that light ever hits your dashboard. First, you need the one move that makes you look safe instead of suspicious. Second, you need the exact line that stops you from talking your way into a bigger problem. Third, you need the sentence that shuts down most consent searches before they start. And fourth, you need to know how to end the stop before it turns into a fishing trip. Most people have no idea that a flashlight changes the whole mood of a stop. The second that beam moves across your seat, your console, and your floorboard, the officer is not just checking on you. They're checking for a story. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and you see the same pattern again and again. The driver panics, reaches around, starts explaining too much, and suddenly the stop grows teeth. Let me show you exactly how to stop that from happening to you. When that light hits your car, your brain wants to do dumb things fast. You want to grab your wallet, you want to hide clutter, you want to move your phone, you want to explain why that bag is on the seat. That is exactly what gets you noticed. Here's the reality. The flashlight itself is usually not the problem. Your reaction to it is the problem. If you start digging under your seat, leaning toward your console, or shoving stuff into your jacket, you make innocent things look dangerous. Watch what happens. A normal stop turns into, why were you reaching? Then it turns into, step out of the car. Then it becomes, do you mind if I take a look? That chain starts because your movements tell a story before your mouth even opens. You need a plan so your body does not betray you before you get the chance to protect yourself. The first thing you do is make your hands boring. The second that flashlight comes into your car, you put both hands high on the wheel and keep them there. If it's dark, turn on your dome light if you can do it without reaching around wildly. You want the officer to see you clearly and see that you are not hunting for anything. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, my hands are on the wheel. Please tell me before you want me to reach for anything. Word for word. Memorize that line. That sentence does 3 things for you fast. It shows you're calm, it shows you're not trying to hide anything, and it forces the officer to give instructions before you move. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. A lot of search escalations start with a movement, not with evidence. The officer shines the light in. You reach toward the glove box. The officer says you made a furtive movement. That just means a quick movement they claim looked suspicious. Once that phrase gets used, your stop gets harder fast. But if your hands stay visible and you ask for instructions first, you make that story much weaker. Former police officers have confirmed this works because officers are trained to watch hands first, words second. Bad way, most drivers say, hold on, I'm just grabbing my wallet while they dig around the car. Then the officer gets jumpy, orders them out, and starts treating every movement like a threat. Good way. Smart drivers say, officer, my hands are on the wheel. Please tell me before you want me to reach for anything. Then the officer sees control, hears respect, and loses the easy excuse that you were making dangerous moves. This is 100% legal. You are not refusing the stop. You are not being difficult. You are asking for clear directions before you move inside a space that the officer is already scanning. Texas Verd Brown matters here. In plain English, the Supreme Court said an officer can use a flashlight to look into your car, and if something illegal is sitting out in plain view, they can use that against you. That means you should never act like the light itself is unlawful. Your better move is to stop feeding the officer new reasons to be suspicious. This comes straight from Supreme Court ruling. If the officer can already look, your job is to make sure what they see is calm hands, clear compliance, and no sudden motion. And there's something else you need to understand. Turning on the dome light can help you. It may feel backwards, but it shows you are not trying to hide in darkness. You want your stop to feel predictable. The officer sees your face, your hands, and your seat area. That lowers tension for everyone. If you have tinted windows, this matters even more because the officer may be extra alert. Your goal is not to win an argument in the first 10 seconds. Your goal is to avoid creating the moment that turns everything against you. If your hands stay still and your voice stays calm, you take away one of the easiest justifications they use to intensify the stop. Think you could stay that calm when a bright light hits your face and your whole car lights up? Let me know in the comments, because that's harder than most people think. Now let's talk about your mouth, because your mouth can hurt you even faster than your hands. Once the officer sees you're not making wild movements, the next step is usually conversation. It sounds casual. Where are you coming from? What's in the bag? Why are you so nervous? You got anything I should know about? Listen closely because this is critical. Those questions are not small talk. They are pressure tools. Your answers can give the officer a timeline, a contradiction, an excuse to keep poking, or a reason to say your story changed. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it stops drivers from handing over those little pieces one by one. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I'll give you my license, registration, and insurance, but I'm not answering questions, word for word. Memorize that line. That sentence is powerful because it sounds calm, not combative. You are still giving the documents you legally need to give. You are just not volunteering a story. And that matters because every extra sentence becomes a test. If you say you were at a friend's house, they ask which friend. If you say you were at dinner, they ask whether you drank. If you say the bag belongs to your cousin, they ask why it's on your passenger seat. Watch what happens when you keep talking. The stop stops being about the traffic issue and starts becoming about whether your story sounds clean enough for them. Bad way. Most drivers say, I'm just coming from my friend's place, and that bag is nothing, and I only looked down for a second. Then the officer hears 3 new topics to investigate and keeps the stop going. Good way. Smart drivers say, officer, I'll give you my license, registration, and insurance, but I'm not answering questions. Then the officer gets less material to work with and less room to trap you with your own words. Here's the reality. You do not win these moments by sounding innocent. You win them by staying disciplined. The officer may act annoyed. The officer may repeat the question. The officer may say, if you've got nothing to hide, why not answer? That is bait. Do not argue. Do not give a speech about the Constitution. Just repeat your line if you need to. I'm not answering questions. Short beats smart here. Clean beats clever. The law backs you up more than most drivers think. Berghuis v. Thompkins matters because the Supreme Court made clear that if you want to rely on your right to stay silent, you should say it clearly. In plain English, silence by itself can get messy. A clear statement works better. Your line does exactly that. It tells the officer where the boundary is without turning your stop into a fight. And if the officer orders you out of the car, you still comply physically. Pennsylvania v. Mims says officers can usually order a driver out during a lawful traffic stop. So if that happens, you step out calmly and keep your words tight. You protect yourself with discipline, not drama. Now we get to the line that saves people all the time and still gets ignored every day. If the flashlight keeps moving and the officer says something like, you don't mind if I look around, right? Or mind if I check that bag? Or you've got nothing illegal in here, so a quick search is no big deal, right? Your answer matters more than your tone, your smile, or your story. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Word for word. Memorize that line. Not, I'd rather you didn't. Not, do you need to. Not, I guess that's fine. Clear beats soft every time. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection because consent is the easiest path into your car. If you say yes, you can lose a huge argument later. If you say no clearly, you preserve your rights even if the officer searches anyway. That matters because judges and defense lawyers care about what you agreed to. Here's the reality. A lot of drivers think refusing consent makes them look guilty. It does not. It makes you careful. This is 100% legal. You never have to volunteer your car just because an officer asked in a casual voice. Bad way. Most drivers say, sure, go ahead. I don't have anything. Then the officer starts opening bags, moving things, and turning your whole car into a crime scene. Good way. Smart drivers say, officer, I do not consent to any searches. Then your rights stay alive, your position stays clear, and any later challenge gets much stronger. Schneckloth v. Bustamonte is the case you need to remember here. In plain English, the Supreme Court said a search can be valid if you voluntarily consent. That means your nervous yes can become the reason the search stands up later. That is why your line matters so much. And if the officer says they smell something or see something, do not argue on the roadside. You still do not consent. You say your line once or twice and stop. Your goal is to avoid helping them clean up the record against you. There is another point you need to hear. The flashlight often sets up the consent request. The officer scans the seat, the cup holder, the back floor, and the door pocket. They may see wrappers, cash, a vape, tools, or plain mess. None of that automatically means crime, but it can open the door to more questions and pressure. The consent line is your lock on that door. If they already have legal grounds, they may search anyway. You cannot always stop the search in that moment. But you can stop yourself from making it easier. That is a huge difference. If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most drivers. Show me you're serious by hitting that like button, because the next move is the one that stops a short stop from becoming a long one. Now let's talk about the part almost nobody uses at the right time. Once the officer has checked your documents, asked questions, maybe shine the light again, and maybe push for consent, you need to know when to force clarity. If the traffic part seems done and you're still sitting there while the officer stalls, that's the danger zone. This is where a warning turns into a fishing trip. Here's exactly what you say. Am I being detained or am I free to leave? Those exact words. Memorize that line. That question matters because it makes the officer choose. If you're free to go, the stop should end. If you're being detained, the officer needs a legal reason to keep you there. You do not say it in a sarcastic voice. You do not say it like a threat. You say it like a calm adult who knows the stop cannot drift forever. Former police officers have confirmed this works because it forces the moment into the open. No more endless pause, no more vague circling, no more making you sit while they hope you crack. Bad way. Most drivers say, so what's taking so long? Or they just keep sitting there nervous and silent. Then the stop drags on and more questions, more officers, or a dog can show up. Good way. Smart drivers say, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Then the officer has to say whether the stop is over or whether they claim a reason to keep you. Rodriguez v. United States is the key case here. In plain English, the Supreme Court said police cannot stretch a traffic stop longer than needed just to look for other crimes unless they have proper legal grounds. That means time matters. Your question makes time matter out loud, and if the officer tells you to step out, you step out. If the officer says you're still detained, you do not argue there on the roadside. You just stop talking, keep refusing consent, and let the record be what it is. Let me show you exactly why this works so well. When you ask that question, you stop guessing and make the officer own the next move. There's one last piece you need to add, and it's simple. You do not explain the law to the officer. You do not try to win the stop with a speech. You win by becoming hard to manipulate. Calm hands, short answers, no consent, clear exit question. That is your whole game. If you try to sound like a lawyer, you usually end up sounding nervous. If you keep it simple, you protect yourself better. So let's pull the legal part together in plain English so you can actually remember it. Texas Verrains, brown means the officer can shine a flashlight into your car and use what is plainly visible. In your world, that means you do not panic about the light itself. You control your hands and your movements. Schneckloth Verrain, Bustamonte means if you agree to a search, that agreement can make the search legal. In your world, that means your sentence, I do not consent to any searches, is not just smart, it is vital. Rodriguez Verrain, United States, means the officer cannot keep stretching the stop without a real reason. In your world, that means your question, am I being detained or am I free to leave, can stop the drift. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings, and all three cases connect directly to what happens when that beam comes through your window. The light is the setup. Your actions decide whether it becomes a search, a longer detention, or just another stop you get through clean. Now picture your stop from start to finish so you can feel how this works in real life. You're driving home at night, lights flash behind you, you pull, the officer walks up and shines a light across your lap, your console, and your back seat. The wrong way starts instantly. You grab your wallet from the center console before being told. You move a backpack with your elbow. You say, it's just my stuff, I'm not hiding anything. Officer sees the movement, hears the nervous explanation, and starts digging with questions. Then comes, mind if I search? You say yes because you want to look cooperative. Now your car is open, your words are on camera, and the stop is no longer simple. Now watch the right way. You pull over and keep your hands high on the wheel. If it's dark, you turn on your dome light safely. The officer shines the flashlight in, and you say, officer, my hands are on the wheel. Please tell me before you want me to reach for anything. When asked for documents, you move only when told. Then the officer starts the casual questions. You say, officer, I'll give you my license, registration, and insurance, but I'm not answering questions. The officer pushes again. You stay calm. Then comes the search request. You say, officer, I do not consent to any searches. The officer returns to the car, takes time, and comes back slow. You ask, am I being detained or am I free to leave? That one sentence forces the stop into the open. Either you leave or the officer must state a reason to hold you. That is a huge difference in how your night ends and how your case looks later if it goes that far. Next week, I'm dropping the full video on what to say when cops ask you to step out and start separating you from your passengers. Subscribe right now, or you'll miss the tactic that keeps your group from getting played against each other. So burn these 4 moves into your mind. When the light hits your car, your hands go visible and boring. When the questions start, you give documents but not a story. When the search request comes, you refuse consent clearly. When the stop starts dragging, you ask if you're detained or free to leave. You do not need perfect nerves. You need a repeatable script. You need something simple enough to use when your chest is tight and your brain feels slow. That is your power in these moments. Not a speech, not an argument, just clear lines you can actually remember and use. Hit subscribe so you catch that next video before you need it. Smash like if this gave you a real plan for your next stop. And drop a comment telling me which line you're going to memorize first. Stay calm, protect your rights, and keep your mouth from doing the officer's job for them.